Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Scrolling with Hayley. I'm Hayley Panettiere. I had such a great weekend. I came in here and everyone said to me, Hayley, how was your lobster trapping weekend? It was so much fun. It was genuinely so much fun. I spent the weekend with the American Conservation Coalition. They are a group, and this is how I got connected with them. If you all watched the show, you probably saw my interview with Ali Voss not too long ago, and we talked about all things relationships and marriage and things like that and gender roles, and she's actually a nuclear energy expert. And I thought, I really need to get to know this girl on another level because she's kind of twofold. She's got this extremely wicked smart version of her, and then she talks about all this fun culture stuff on TikTok, and I didn't really know how. I wanted to know more about the nuclear energy aspect of what she does. So anyway, we connected, and she works for the American Conservation Coalition, which is essentially a nonprofit that helps pro-environmentalist Republican candidates get into office. And it's really a place for conservatives who care about the environment, which I think is most people. I think the leftists sort of get the pick of the litter when it comes to the climate conversation. They kind of own the climate conversation in a way where most people are turned off by it, where they think, they hear AOC talking about cow farts and they just lose everybody because it's like, well, I don't want to be on that side of the aisle. And, I'm Republican. I am not a climate alarmist, but I do care about the environment. I think it's very important. We are very blessed to live on this planet and we must be good stewards of it. So anyway, she said, we have this trip planned to Portland, Maine. Would you like to come with us? And I said, sure. She said, we're going lobster trapping. Is that something you would like to do? I said, sure. So I never thought that that's something that I would do, but it kind of fell into my lap and it was such a cool weekend. Do you know how cool lobsters are, by the way? Do you know anything about lobsters?
Like their genetic makeup or like their...
I don't know anything.
Just anything about lobsters? I know they taste good.
Same. And we learned so much. Did you know that lobsters can live to over 100 years old? They only die because they basically become too tired to molt their shell. They're growing too large for their shell and they just become old and they can't get rid of their shell anymore. They can't grow into their shell anymore. That's the only reason why they die. If they had a bigger shell, they would survive. Isn't that wild?
Crustaceans are pretty ancient.
Yes.
So I guess that checks out. I've never put two and two together.
Me
but
neither.
Thanks for the lobster fact.
Did you also know, and here's another crazy lobster fact. If you guys don't follow me on social media, you should. I've posted photos of me with lobsters from over the weekend. But did you know they pee bubbles out of their face? Did you know that?
Why would I know that?
I know. These are like...
I know if you add butter and toast a roll and then slap them in there, delish.
They taste really good. Yeah. So anyway, I had such a great time learning about lobsters. And we were on not a commercial fishing boat, but it was more so for learning purposes and for tours. So it wasn't really like, we did pull lobsters out of the trap, but it wasn't on the same level as a commercial lobster fishing boat. But they can put out to 800 lobster traps, 800 on one boat. One commercial fishing boat will go out, drop 800 traps. They come back a week later, pick up all the traps. And I asked the guy, I was like, how do you remember where they all are? And he said, I just remember in my head where 800 lobster traps are in the ocean. I was like, that's crazy. It's totally crazy.
Lobstering up in Maine, it's an unreal situation they got.
It was cool. So anyway, I had a great weekend in Portland. Also, reminder for my Floridians that it's primary election day in Florida. So definitely go out to vote. I'm going to vote after this show is over. So definitely do that. And also a reminder to subscribe to this show. Rumble.com/Hayley's where you can watch the show live. And you can watch on Spotify. And you can listen on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you get your shows. I don't care as long as you tell a friend about them. And of course, support our sponsors like the Chef Man. Most frozen drink makers, they either cost a fortune or they feel like this cheap seasonal gadget. The Chef Man Slush Ease Max delivers premium frozen drink performance without the premium price tag. Honestly, I was surprised by how much this feels like one of those premium frozen drink machines, but without the premium price tag. It makes commercial style slushies right on your countertop. The best part is you don't even need ice, which is great for me because my ice machine is still broken. I had to get ice in my coffee when I got in here today. So you don't even need ice at home. If your ice maker is also broken and your fridge is also broken like mine is, you could still make margaritas like that with the Chef Man. So you just pour in whatever ingredients you want and let it go to work. And the 90-ounce capacity means there's plenty to go around for family nights, parties, or backyard get-togethers. What I really like is that it's not a novelty appliance. It's something that you can use year-round and skip those frozen, expensive drink shop runs. If you want to make your own frosé at home, you could do that. And if you've been thinking about getting a frozen drink machine, I think you'll be impressed with the Chef Man Slush Ease Max. It delivers great frozen drinks, it's easy to use, and it won't cost a fortune. Plus, you'll save 25% off with my code SCROLL. Visit chefman.com and use promo code SCROLL. Again, that is chefman.com, promo code SCROLL. Put those phones on Do Not Disturb. The show starts now. People are joking in the chat that they love ice. So the Chef Man Slush Ease Max, I mean, they love their ice. You know, I'm just saying that because I don't have ice. But yes, I also love ice. Immigration Customs Enforcement.
Technically makes ice. Like makes your drink slushy.
Exactly. Just a different kind of ice. We love all forms of ice here on this show. But I want to get into today's show and basically how Hollywood is not a safe place for children. We know this. It's really not a safe place for adults either, but it's particularly dangerous for child stars. We've seen countless child stars end up in abusive relationships with lovers, parents, managers. They become mentally ill, physically ill, sexually abused, and some turn up dead. And this has been happening for decades. And I've watched the actors and actresses and singers that I grew up watching completely lose it. And it's easier to answer the question, what child stars haven't ended up in a bad place, than it is to name the child stars that have. The child stars that have gotten hooked on drugs or partying is a much longer list. Of course, chief among them, Lindsay Lohan. Started modeling at 3 years old. She starred in The Parent Trap at 11 years old, which put her on the map. And then she was getting booked for multiple successful movies her entire childhood career and into her teens. She was in Get a Clue at age 15, Freaky Friday at 16. She was in Mean Girls, Herbie Fully Loaded, and Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen when she was 17. I mean, she really hit this stride in her teenage years, but when she was a minor. And then she got thrown in jail quite a bit. By the mid-2000s, she was seen partying alongside Paris Hilton and Britney Spears. And Paris Hilton seems to be okay now, but Britney Spears certainly is not. We'll get to that in a second. But Lindsay Lohan has been hauled to jail over 6 times, twice for DUIs. She seems to have gotten her act together in recent years, but she had come out and said that being in Hollywood as a teenager was toxic. She ultimately had to move away to get away from the nightlife of it all, which is interesting because I think she ended up moving to Greece and opening a nightclub in Mykonos. So that's one way to get away from the nightlife in Hollywood, is just to move countries and do it all over again somewhere else.
You can control your own nightlife in Greece.
Exactly. But she is doing a lot of Hallmark movies now, so maybe she's turning a more wholesome leaf over. I don't know. But I can imagine that you're not often told no when you're famous, and certainly not when you're in every hot new movie coming out. And that brings me to Britney Spears, who had her famous crash out in 2007. You know, she lost her mind. We saw her driving around with her son on her lap. She was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. We saw her, like in this photo, shave her head and attack a paparazzo's car with an umbrella. She lost custody of her 2 sons in her divorce with Kevin Federline. And in recent years, she's faced a lot of social media scrutiny for her erratic behavior. She takes to social media in her underwear and she starts dancing with knives, and she looks erratic, and her makeup's all the way down here. It's wild. So she's in place under a conservatorship with really little to no control over her life and finances. And you could argue that that's for her safety. She's probably not of sound mind. Some people argue that maybe it's too much. But again, this is a child that grew up in the limelight and has struggled the entire way. And Amanda Bynes is another one that I used to say to myself, she's like the only child star that I grew up with that didn't go crazy until she did. So there really aren't very many that go on to be successful and normal. But she started in the entertainment industry very young on Nickelodeon with The Amanda Show. Did you ever watch The Amanda Show?
Amanda
Huge.
show.
Bring up the dancing lobsters, by the way, just based on my my weekend with the lobsters. Anyway, I used to watch the Amanda Show. And while Amanda has not accused the producer of that show, Dan Schneider, of any wrongdoing, he was accused by other Nickelodeon child stars in the docuseries Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. He had this fixation with their feet and put them in, sexual storylines and things like that were really inappropriate. And other child stars came out and accused him of all this. Amanda never said anything, but I can't imagine that he did it to everyone and not Amanda. But this is basically, at her prime, she is so gorgeous, so beautiful. She's at the top of her career. And, she's so cute. She had her own show. Then she's starting to do all these amazing movies. She was in She's the Man. She was in What a Girl Wants. She was in Hairspray. She was in Easy A in her 20s. And just very, very talented girl. And I used to be a huge fan of hers. And then I thought that she was totally normal. And boy, was I wrong. She debuted this new look on the internet, which you'll see in this video, where she starts sort of going off the deep end. You could see when she's 26, 28 years old, she's bleaching her hair, she's bleaching her eyebrows. She starts getting very, again, just this erratic online behavior. Tattoo on her face, she's shaving her eyebrows, she looks completely unrecognizable. I can't believe that this is the same woman in the first half of this video. It's very sad to see. And now she's 40 years old, and she's still doing this stuff where she's bleaching her hair and she's got face tattoos, and she's not normal. It's so sad to see. This is someone that I really looked up to, and it makes you wonder, is this industry even safe for children to enter into at all, even into adulthood? It just seems like nobody has their heads on straight. The people around them don't help them, and all they're doing is hurting these children. I don't think that, obviously the cat's out of the bag. What are you going to do? Ban children from working? Their parents are telling them to do this stuff or putting them in it at a very young age. Some kids, I'm sure, want to be famous, but it seems like you can't really have a world in which they make movies without children or without baby. There's always going to be a need for that.
It is very interesting to see the child stars that made it out and are doing okay, and those who didn't. The disparity is so large. You look at Justin Bieber, he had a crazy spell, but he also was 15 and
he was doing hard drugs.
Yeah, he kind of fell off. But then you look at Ryan Gosling, who seems to be all right. I don't know a lot about the Goss's life, but pretty successful movie star, and he was a child actor for a long time.
Christina Aguilera as well seems to be on a different trajectory now. She doesn't seem horrible. I don't know her whole.
Feels like there's no middle ground, I guess is what I'm saying. You either are doing okay and you're still in Hollywood, or you have crashed out.
Yeah, and I think it's probably this identity shift too, where if you leave Hollywood, it's dang, what do I do now? Who am I now? It's kind of hard to, again, I said before, when you are famous, and it's very difficult to hear the word no. How do you become a regular person that has to go to your 9-to-5 job and be told no? It's just you've been skewed. Your whole perception of life is skewed.
It takes a lot of mental toughness to say, hey, I did peak, and that's okay. And I'm going to do the best I can with the rest of the life I have.
Totally.
And the mental toughness, I think a lot of people, it's hard.
Yeah, they're lacking.
It's not an easy thing.
Yeah, and of course we've covered this on the show before, this Hollywood obsession with Ozempic, and now this trend of uber skinny women, which I think kind of happened in the 90s, where we had the Kate Mosses of the world who were rail thin, and now we're seeing that trend come back, which again, bodies are trends. But Ariana Grande, we've covered, where she was on this Wicked movie tour and she looked completely unrecognizable as well. But she got her start on Nickelodeon on a show called Victorious. She went on to star in another show called Sam and Cat. She went on to have a very successful solo acting and singing career. Don't know what's going on with her, but she's looking much different than she used to. This is her in her latest music video, where you can see all of the bones in her chest, her clavicle, it's just, she's so thin. She has so low body fat. Her shoulder bones are sticking out. It looks very scary. This is someone that is not healthy. I don't know if it's Ozempic. I don't know if it's anorexia. But this is not someone who has a healthy amount of body fat on her at all. And she used to be very healthy looking. Again, Demi Lovato, same thing. Child star turned music sensation. She got her start on Disney. It's always Disney or Nickelodeon. These are the children's show networks, and the same stuff. It runs very deep. It's very sinister. She was starring in a movie called Camp Rock with the Jonas Brothers. She also had her own TV show called Sunny with a Chance, and she was addicted to cocaine while filming Camp Rock, a kids show, at 15 years old. She admitted to doing hard drugs when she was 15 years old. This is wild. And then again, we know that she is now married to a man and looks very healthy, but during 2020, she went off the deep end. She went off this woke deep end, didn't she?
Yeah, she took a huge, the guy she married, I actually have been a fan of for a long time.
Who is it? I don't even know.
His name is, he goes by the stage name Jutes. He's really good. He used to do kind of like...
What is he? A musician?
Rock star. He does like pop rock now, but he used to do kind of the trap rock back in the day when that was really popular.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd never...
He's had his own kind of ups and downs, but they seem to be doing good, which is fun for everybody.
Which is great, but this was her little 2020, 2021 crash out where she came out as non-binary. Watch this.
This is 4D with Demi Lovato.
New podcast.
Living in the fourth dimension means existing consciously in both time and space. But for me, it means having conversations that transcend the typical discourse. I want to take this moment to share something very personal with you. Over the past year and a half, I've been doing some healing and self-reflective work. And through this work, I've had the revelation that I identify as non-binary. With that said, I'll officially be changing my pronouns to they, them. I feel that this best represents the fluidity I feel in my gender expression and allows me to feel most authentic and true to the person I both know I am and still am discovering. In this first episode, I'm excited to share with you what this means to me and what it may look like for other people. I want to make it clear that I'm still learning and coming into myself, and I don't claim to be an expert or a spokesperson. I know this might be a new conversation for many, so I'm inviting my friend Alok, someone I trust, to spend time on this.
Which basically means, and this is the greatest thing that you could do in Hollywood, is say that you're bisexual or non-binary, because no one can claim that you went back on your word if you're bisexual and you end up marrying a man and being your straight self. You can just go back to normal and no one would ever question it, because it's like, well, I said I'm non-binary. That doesn't mean I could be whatever I want. You know, my gender changes, my sexuality changes, everything's on a spectrum. So they're never wrong. You could basically say I'm a lesbian today, I'm straight tomorrow, or I'm they, them today, I'm she, her tomorrow, and they're never wrong. But it's a very easy way to get your name in the headlines and become relevant again, where it's like, ooh, Demi Lovato is now they. We all have to call her they. And then she can go back and, of course, she's happy and healthy and married to a man. So, you know, she just gets to do it for a little while. And in some cases, the artists are not lucky enough to survive Hollywood and what it puts them through. Singer Aaron Carter died at 34 years old due to an accidental drowning after taking Xanax and huffing difluoroethane. And this is very sad. I mean, his family ended up going after his family and his estate ended up reaching a partial settlement with the psychiatric clinic that prescribed him the Xanax, but the damage is already done. And I say all this to paint the picture of how damaging this industry is for everyone involved, but certainly for the stars who come up in it as kids. They're child actors or singers, and you would think that they would have people around them, like their family, who care about them. But that's not necessarily the truth in every case. Their parents throw them to the wolves, in many cases for paychecks. And the managers and other talent agents in Hollywood, they don't care about keeping their well-being so long as they keep working and bringing in money. And that was the case for former child star Hayden Panettiere, who died on Sunday at the age of 36. She died of cardiac arrest and suffered an apparent overdose. Here she is in 2022 in an interview explaining how readily available drugs were to her as a teenager. Listen.
Young Hayden was exhausted when she says someone on her team, who was supposed to be looking out for her, approached her with a solution.
They came to me, and it was before this red carpet, and I had been doing Heroes, and we did press all the time. And I was a little low energy, and it was, here, take one of these. It's a happy pill. It'll give you energy. So I didn't think of it at the time as like a bad thing or a drug.
How old were you?
I was 16. It must have been something that was similar to like an Adderall.
Yeah.
But they got it from Mexico. I should have thought that's so sketchy, but I didn't, because I trusted the person. And it did give me that little bit of energy. And I didn't feel like high and out of control, but I did feel like happy. And like I was looking forward to doing
the life of the party
interview. Yes, I do remember asking them for some for personal use, and then somebody else found out and let me know how bad that was.
So we know that Demi Lovato was given cocaine when she was 15 years old. Obviously, these are illicit drugs. You can't, even if you're, an adult, you can't just go get these drugs, over the counter at CVS. And now Hayden Panettiere says the same thing. Well, she got some kind of really hyped up Adderall. Sounds like cocaine to me, but whatever. Maybe cocaine from Mexico. Maybe it's some souped up, I don't know what, from Mexico. Who knows? But these people need to be held accountable. Find out who their managers were and who gave these minors illicit drugs and put them behind bars. But then again, it's weird because these people never come out and say names. After Harvey Weinstein and the whole Me Too thing, I felt like people would probably get some more courage to come out and name names of people in the industry that were doing bad things. Why do these people never get held accountable? These managers and talent agents that are giving children drugs. Why do we never hear their names? Why are they not behind bars? That's my question.
Unfortunately, I would assume because so many are doing it, you would run out of celebrities. Also, I think there's a certain sect of people who don't necessarily see this as a bad thing, which is sad. I think they just see it as something you do. You like to party.
So my question is, though, like Hayden Panettiere is doing this interview and she says, yeah, I was 16 years old and I was being given drugs from Mexico. Their question isn't who gave you those drugs. Their question isn't who, what, why, when, where. Like, this is a crime. It just seems odd that people like talk to celebrities and they say these things out loud and it's like, oh yeah, that's bad.
I think it's just a culture thing. You become numb to that's not something special. That's just what happens in Hollywood. Yeah,
which is very scary. The people around her obviously had no moral compass. They were willing to put a very young girl in very precarious situations. And here she is in May of this year on Jay Shetty's podcast explaining how a friend of hers, again, someone she trusted, she took the drugs from someone she trusted, and now a friend that she trusted brought her to a room with a man on a yacht. Watch.
When I got to this part, when you write about this in the book, you write about a moment in your career where a friend of yours takes you onto a boat. You're led to a room which has an older man in it and then basically told to perform sexual acts and,
Oh, yeah.
And when I read that, I'm like, oh gosh, like not only have you felt like you've had a really unsupported, upbringing, you're now with a friend in the industry and then ending up in a situation like this. Could you talk to me about what that moment does to your psyche when you're that?
I mean, the fact that I was 18, even though I'd lived such a huge life and I thought I was so mature at 18, scientifically, her frontal lobes don't develop until we're, 26. So even though I felt like I could make healthy decisions, safe decisions, I wasn't capable of being fully aware of what was going on around me. And it wasn't until I found myself in predicaments that I realized my perspective completely shifted, and I realized that I was in danger. But by the time I'd realized I was in danger, I was quite literally out to sea. And it was that moment shook me and was shocking. And I was quite literally walked down, and I had been having a great time. There was no hints of anything like that happening. So it took me, I was shocked. It took me by surprise. And it was led by somebody that I had grown to trust and see as a protector and somebody who had my back. And to be walked down the stairs, and it was as like a surprise, presented as though it was like a surprise, and it was this very small room, and she physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous and had his hands like this, like this was just, an average day for him. This is something that happens all the time. And I waited for her to leave. And I mean, that lion in me, that fire in me, that my hair stood on end, and I became ferocious. I was like, this is not happening. But I had nowhere to hide. And I bolted, and I hid wherever I could think of to hide on a boat. There was no jumping off and swimming away, and there was nobody who was going to. I realized that there was nobody who was going to be empathetic to my situation, that this was nothing new to them.
I mean, it's such a horrifying event to go through, and to be put in that position at 18 years old.
And disappointing when somebody lets you down like that. And I'd been let down so much before, and that when you really find somebody that you trust, like, you hold on to them for dear life, and you feel so lucky. So to be betrayed like that is just an awful feeling.
I mean, it's a disturbing story, to say the least. And it doesn't matter that she was 18 years old. I mean, she was obviously being eyed before she turned 18. And this person was essentially pimping her out to men on yachts. And this is not unlike, this isn't a one-off. You hear this stuff happen all the time to women in this industry. And it's very sad to hear about. And after this situation and a childhood marred by abuse, I mean, her parents were not so kind to her. And of course, the people around her were giving her drugs and whatnot. So after a whole childhood of drug abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse at the hands of her team and her friends and her family, she wrote a memoir that came out this year and detailed her horrific relationship with her parents. Her dad used to beat her mom. Her mom was awful to Hayden. And then as an adult, Hayden entered into a relationship with Brian Hickerson, who abused her as well. And this is going to play into what we just found out. I actually just got a notification on my phone right before the show started that he was there with her while she died. But she detailed him slapping her, punching her, leaving her so bruised that she couldn't leave the house. Neighbors would hear them fighting and call the police. He did an interview with TMZ after Hayden's memoir came out, and this is what he had to say. Take a look at this behavior. Watch.
Have you read Hayden's book? So what did you think?
Hayden's book's incredible.
Despite some of the, kind of rehashing some of the things that happened between you guys, you still thought it was good?
No, I think it's great. I think everyone should read it. I mean, the domestic violence stuff that I think is like 272, page 272, my chapter. Everybody should read it. Yeah.
How was it for you reading that?
But yeah, I mean, it was, who wants to read something about themselves like that, right? But, you got to be vulnerable. And, I did it. So,
Was there anything before that you asked Hayden to keep out of the book?
Yeah.
What did you not want her to talk about in the book?
So there's a story where I was drunk, right? Hayden was standing across the room, and I had a phone in my hand, and I said, Hayden, I said, And I'll give you 10 seconds to run as fast as you can before I throw it at you.
Yeah, that would be very tough to read about yourself, but also would be a horrific situation to be in as well.
Of course. Of course.
Do you think this is an important chapter for not just survivors to read, but also for people that are abusers? Do you think it's important for both sides to be reading something like this?
I think it's more important for abusers. My biggest thing about domestic violence is I don't think it is taught early enough in life. Never in my life did I ever get taught what domestic violence was, right? Maybe if I did at an early age, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did.
Brutal to listen to. The interview is brutal to listen to. The fact that he knows the page number in the book that detailed his domestic violence and he is talking about that smiling tells you everything you need to know about this man. And he is obviously drunk or on drugs. And everyone in the chat is telling me right now, I want to kick his ass. He's never been held accountable. What a tard. He keeps smiling. Don't idolize these people. Dude's playing the victim, narcissist, dumbass comes to mind. I mean, everyone thinks that he is in the wrong and drunk, which I came to that same conclusion as well. He is obviously drunk in this video.
Hey man, when somebody says, hey, is there something you wanted to I leave out? Maybe you don't have an immediate terrible story about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this one was pretty jarring. Wish I would have known that was domestic violence. I had no idea.
And the
That's
fact
crazy.
that, I mean, he's using himself as an example for other domestic abusers. He's like, yeah, you should really read this stuff and learn from my mistakes. And guess who Hayden was with the day before she died? And now we found out just before the show started that he was with her at the time of her death. Anyone want to place a bet who she was with? That guy. Drunk, on it again, off again boyfriend. Horrible. Horrible. And he accompanied Hayden on their flight from LA to South Carolina. She was staying with him temporarily at the Judson Mill Loft Apartments in Greenville, South Carolina. And reports say that the address that they went to is tied to Hickerson, and it is an Airbnb property run by him and his brother. And now we know that Hickerson and his brother were in the apartment and with Hayden when she died. This is an interesting revelation in this case. And I'm sure in the coming days and weeks we will find out more information, but something tells me that the two of these people together are trouble, Hayden and the boyfriend, because clearly they both have substance abuse issues and clearly they get violent when they're together. And I'm sure that the substances have something to do with that, if not everything to do with that. And it makes me sad that this is a woman who, and we'll get into this, but she has clearly tried to better herself over the years. Like, she is very open and honest about the fact that she has a problem and she's trying to get better. And she keeps going back to this man that is bringing out the worst in her and is basically a horrible influence on her. And basically Hayden was found unresponsive at this apartment. And they now say that she was found with Narcan at her side. And Narcan is readily available now. People have it in their homes, whether they are addicted to drugs or not, because you never know. People keep it in their, on their person if they see someone that's having an overdose. But they had it in the house, which makes me feel like, I don't know. I don't know how you can be, maybe they were drunk and high too. And again, more details are going to come out about this, but I don't understand how someone could be overdosing. Narcan is out and on the bed and you still can't save her. And according to the report, I believe it was TMZ who has been on this case, obviously, they are saying that when the authorities arrived to the house and they called 911 and they came, the boyfriend was beside himself, very emotional. When they arrived at the house. So who knows if he had something to do with it or not. I think they are certainly people of interest. I would say the brother and the boyfriend. I have no way of knowing if he had any connection to the death, but it just seems like odd that she was found unconscious with Narcan nearby and they couldn't seem to revive her. But despite Hayden's struggles with drugs throughout her whole life, she did end up having a daughter with her then fiance, different than this drunk guy, but a Ukrainian boxer. And they ended up splitting up in 2018. And she ended up, after a custody battle, giving her ex-fiance full custody of their daughter because she was struggling so much with substance abuse issues and also postpartum depression. And her postpartum depression was so bad that she would self-soothe with alcohol, which made her depression worse, and then it sent her deeper into this spiral. And she needed inpatient treatment to get her out of. And here she is first openly discussing her postpartum depression on national television on Live with Kelly and Michael 10 years ago. Listen.
You know, when they tell you about postpartum depression, you think about, okay, I feel negative feelings towards my child. I want to injure my child. I want to hurt my child. I've never, ever had those feelings. And some women do, but you don't realize what broad of a spectrum you can really experience that on. And it's something I think that needs to be talked about, and women need to know that they're not alone and that it does.
Yeah, there seems to be some deep shame in it for some reason, because I guess...
Well, there's a lot of misunderstanding, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there who think that it's not real, that it's not true, that it's something that's made up in their mind, and oh, it's hormones, and they kind of brush it off, and it's not true. It's something that's completely uncontrollable, and it's really painful, and it's really scary, and you know, women need a lot of support.
Someone in the chat said, I've known people that suffered this, and it's very common. I've had friends go through this, and at different levels, and I don't want to like out any of my friends, but I've had friends that have needed to be hospitalized because of this. It is very serious. But Hayden Panettiere detailed in this interview that she was going through postpartum depression. And it was something that she had never talked about publicly before, but it just kind of came up in conversation. She didn't think that it was going to come up, but it did. And they asked her about her character in the show Nashville that had postpartum depression. And she thought, well, you know, this is something that I've gone through personally, so it sort of helped me with my character. And that, now she knows, was the interview that ended up ending her 10-year deal with Neutrogena. And she detailed this in an interview with Jay Shetty. Watch.
Neutrogena was a huge part of my life. I had the memorials clauses. They caught absolutely everything, and of all the things that they would fire me over, this was the last thing that I thought they would ever fire me over. And when I actually went out onto stage, it was live with Kelly and Michael, I had no intention of or plan to talk about postpartum depression. It just came up, and I was just being honest. And never for a second did I think that anyone or care that anyone would have a bad reaction to it. It was my truth. And so when I got that call that Neutrogena wanted to fire me over that, and my representative at the time said, that's illegal. You can't do that. And even though, you know, she saved the day that year, I knew that was going to be it. That I was not going to be invited back the next year. And I had worked with these people for 10 years, and I remember not hearing a word from anybody, not a great working with you for 10 years, not a nice
hope you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, hope you're good. We wish you well. And I remember that really breaking my heart. I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't take it back. But as I said, of all the things that I had been caught doing, that being the thing that was where they drew the line, and it was immoral, was shocking.
So this is her recollection of what happened. Obviously, and I haven't seen Neutrogena come out and say anything. whether or not this was the reason or not. This is what Hayden Panettiere thinks the reason is. I think this was maybe like a last straw type thing where Neutrogena, if she was as drunk and abusing drugs the way that she says she was, maybe that was the reason Neutrogena didn't want to work with her anymore. I can't imagine that saying that you have postpartum depression on live TV is the straw that broke the camel's back. Do you think that that's, I mean, I can't, Neutrogena is a brand that is for women.
I'm not sure. I do know that growing up, they were tied together. When I thought of Neutrogena, I thought of her commercials.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the face.
Right, but your brand, let's play this out. Neutrogena is a brand that sells makeup products, makeup wipes, makeup remover. I mean, men are not buying their products. Maybe one or two.
I had some skin
prep.
Yeah. That was about as far as I got.
Right,
But
skin
yeah.
scrubs or whatever. For the most part, their brand is tailored towards women who wear makeup and take their makeup off. And why wouldn't you appeal to, if you had a brand ambassador who had been working with you for 10 years and was struggling with something, and I'm saying not the substance abuse stuff. I think it's prudent for Neutrogena to not want to work with someone who's drunk and on drugs. But if we're taking Hayden Panettiere for her word and she genuinely thinks that she was fired because she talked about postpartum depression, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm calling BS on that, because why would Neutrogena piss off their audience who has probably gone through postpartum depression as well? Just doesn't seem like something that they would do.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see how, I mean, as you know, contracts kind of are all over the place. You know, maybe it was a 10-year and they just were ready to get out. I mean, I didn't follow her career super close, but I do remember her being a little up, high highs, low lows. She would do a new show like Nashville and it was a huge hit and it was her comeback. And then later on you'd be like, well, you know.
I never really knew about any of this going on with her. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I watched her in Ice Princess. I watched her in, what else was she in? Bring It On.
She was in Bug's Life as a kid.
Yeah.
She was in Malcolm in the Middle.
Remember the Titans.
Yeah. I mean, she was a very well-known child, young adult actress for a long time.
And maybe this is because we're sort of close in age. Like, she's 30, or she was 36. I'm 32. So I didn't remember her. Like, I didn't idolize her in Remember the Titans because, kids don't really, anyway. I think the first child actors that I was really old enough to appreciate were the kids in Harry Potter, because I don't remember how old I was, but I remember reading the books in first grade, or started reading the first book in first grade. And then, I was old enough to appreciate the child actors and sort of become fans of them. But Hayden Panettiere wasn't on that level until she was probably in her teens or 20s, where she was in these movies that I was like, oh, okay, we're similar age.
No doubt. We definitely, because we grew up with the Harry Potter cast. They were our age. And
right.
She was definitely a star and she was so famous so early too.
Yeah.
Like, that was part of the equation that I think made this so impactful. Is even at a young age, she was a blockbuster star.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize that she was struggling so much. I sort of only heard the high highs of her career, like you were talking about. I didn't know that she was struggling with any of this stuff. I didn't remember that she had postpartum depression. Again, 10 years ago, that was like not on my radar. So not something that I was really paying attention to. And I never watched Nashville. I never watched Heroes. I never watched those shows. So maybe like I wasn't the target audience. I wasn't really following her that deeply. But she most recently said to CBS that this was the best she had ever felt recently. She did the Jay Shetty podcast. Then she joined CBS Good Morning, or CBS Mornings, whatever the show is called, with Gayle King. And she was promoting this new memoir that came out. And she said this was the high highs. So watch this.
And there was so much stigma around the postpartum depression and the backlash. The support was there from people who had experienced it and needed to hear it. but there was so much backlash as well that it shocked me. So I wanted to do more of that and tell more stories.
And how are you today? Because I would imagine it's still based on what I read, I would imagine you're still going through stuff, still processing.
Always.
How are you today?
Always. Still working on myself all the time. I got a great therapist, and I'm better, healthier than I've been in a long time.
Better and healthier than she's been in a long time. This was months ago, and then she dies of an overdose. It just seems so tragic to know that this is a woman who was self-aware enough to know that she was struggling, self-aware enough to know to get help, self-aware enough to remove herself from her own daughter for her own daughter's good, and then to ultimately end up dying from this disease, from addiction. And who knows if the boyfriend was enabling it or whatever. We're definitely going to get more details as this comes out, because as I said, we're getting details, as this show starts. I'm sure I'm missing things right now. But it's very sad. It tells me that she was not suicidal. She had just written a book. She was going on a book tour. She said that she had a lot of life to live in the Jay Shetty podcast. She was sort of crying at the end and realized that she sort of ruined a lot of her life with this drugs and alcohol, and she was ready to turn over a new leaf. This tells me that, again, this was most likely accidental. Whether or not she's still struggling with postpartum depression or depression in general, or self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, it's hard to say. And it's hard to say that there are silver linings when someone dies, but I am grateful for her daughter's father, who stepped up and took custody of Kaya so that her daughter didn't have to see her struggle with drugs, her mom struggle with drugs. And not that it makes it any easier to lose a parent, but she is in Ukraine, very far away from this mess. And when I say mess, I mean the death of her mom because of drugs. It's just that would be very difficult to be around. So again, weird silver lining, but her brother passed away from an enlarged aortic valve in 2023. You can only hope that they're reunited. And again, very, very sad. And these conversations about, postpartum depression in the wake of Hayden's death, it got me thinking about drug abuse. And it also got me thinking about the ongoing Lindsay Clancy trial. Have you been following this trial at all?
A little bit here and there, for sure. Seen headlines and kind of kept up a little bit on X.
Because I wasn't really following it. I remember these headlines when this happened in 2023, thinking this is one of the craziest stories I'd ever heard. So you can let me know in the chat if you're keeping up with the Lindsay Clancy trial. And I remember reading the headlines about a mother strangling her 3 children and jumping out the window of their house, and thinking this is one of the craziest headlines I think I've ever read in my life. And just thinking about these poor children and what they went through in their last moments. And Lindsay Clancy is now on trial, and they're trying to determine whether or not she did this because she is a murderous monster, which she is, or did she do this because of postpartum psychosis, not depression, but psychosis, which is more rare and more extreme. But Lindsay Clancy was a labor and delivery nurse who strangled her 3 children, ages 5, 3, and 8 months, with an exercise band in her basement in January of 2023. And the story goes, she sent her husband Patrick out to run errands, out to go to CVS to pick up a prescription, and then to a restaurant that they had never ordered takeout from before, but it was far away from their house. And based on, the details of the phone and computer records, they know that she was detailing, how far away all of these things were. While he was out on these errands, she killed her children. And then she, like I said, strangled them with an exercise band, and then slit her own wrists and her own neck and jumped out of the 2nd-story window in a suicide attempt. And being a labor and delivery nurse, you would think she would know about postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. One of her former colleagues had even said that Lindsay Clancy said she couldn't imagine a mom hurting her own children. And the prosecution says that she was well aware of what she was planning to do. This was premeditated murder. Like I said, she was calculating how long it would take for her husband to return home. So clearly she was making sure that he was far away from home before she ended up strangling their children. And the defense is attempting to claim insanity. And there are women on TikTok who are now coming to the defense of Lindsay Clancy because they feel like she was failed by her doctors for putting her on a whole swath of psychiatric drugs. And she was pleading for help. And obviously she didn't get the help that she needed in time. And then you have critics of those women on the internet saying, you know, how could you possibly side with this murderous monster? I am of the camp. I agree with everyone. I believe she is a murderous monster who was also failed by her doctors. Both things can be true at once. And I'm glad that I'm not on the jury because I don't know, you know, this is a very difficult case. There's also, I would like to know how people feel about this case because we're day 16. I think today is the 16th day of the trial. I have not been keeping up with this, admittedly, but I am interested in it now because now I scroll on TikTok and it's all I see. And now there are people bringing up inconsistencies and basically some weird things in the trial that people are maybe taking a second guess or maybe a second look at Patrick Clancy, the father. And I am willing to go down rabbit holes in search of the truth, right? The purpose of the justice system is to find the truth. And not every time does the justice system get it right. Not every time do the jurors get it right. These are rare, but it happens. And I'm willing to go down rabbit holes and go into this case if my viewers would find it interesting. I only would do this and take the time to do it if this was something that you all are interested in. So you can let me know in the chat or on Instagram. I'll put like a poll up, or on X, I could put a poll up. If you guys are interested in this, I would be happy to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole if you guys don't want me to, basically. It's a lot of work. We're at day 16 of the trial. I started listening to all the audio last night, and I was listening to Nancy Grace last night, who's incredible. And dang, like there's a lot of stuff in this trial that's making me think, And again, I think that Lindsay Clancy needs to go to jail. Like, point blank period, she killed her family. You need to go to jail. There's really no other option here. But it does make you wonder, you know, this woman killed her family and then jumped out of the second story of the house. And if you're a nurse, you know how to kill yourself. You would know how to slit your wrists in a way that would end your life. I mean, you know where your arteries are. You know the no-go zones, if you will. How do you fail to kill yourself if that's something that you really are setting out to do? And then she had slit her wrists, and then there's marks on this windowsill of where she was hanging on. If you're trying to kill yourself, you're not hanging on to lessen the blow. You would jump to make the impact worse. So again, people in the chat are saying, please go down the rabbit hole. Someone said, no, thank you. No. Someone else says, I genuinely think it was Patrick.
I've seen a lot of support for her, especially in the TikTok sphere. As an ex-guy, I've seen a lot of people commenting shock at how many people are still supporting her kind of in the mamosphere TikTok world. It's interesting. It's a very interesting case, to say the least. It's sad, but interesting.
Yeah, people are kind of split in the chat. So anyway, someone else said, yes, rabbit hole. Please go down the rabbit hole. Someone else said, don't do it. So I don't know. I'm going to piss people off either way. But there are some inconsistencies with the fact that he brought her Apple Watch to CVS while she was at home. And then that's how they were communicating while she was killing her family and trying to kill herself. She was sending text messages back and forth to Patrick about what to pick up at the store. And that seems odd because everyone who has an Apple Watch knows that you can text from the Apple Watch. So was it Patrick texting himself as Lindsay, or was it Lindsay stopping to text her husband while she was trying to do all these things? Again, this is something that I can go down a rabbit hole on. There are crazy theories about him changing his shoes and his clothes, and the fact that The prosecution in this case, by the way, basically outed the fact that he was having an affair. The prosecution wanted to make him look like a great husband and said, how are you spending your anniversary the month before this all happened? And he said Lindsay felt sick. We stayed in. We didn't go out. We ordered takeout. And the prosecution thought, oh, well, I have these credit card bills of you going to this fancy Omni hotel in Boston, and then you bought a massage for Lindsay, and then here's a photo of you guys together. And he said, no, that was not me and Lindsay. And it turns out that the woman that he is married to now, because he has moved on very quickly since his whole family was murdered, she looks exactly like Lindsay. So it turns out that the prosecution, in trying to make him look like the good doting husband that took his wife out for her anniversary, or their anniversary, turned out he was with seemingly the mistress instead. And they went on a hiking trip, him and the new wife, 3 weeks after the death of his 3 children. Again, these are things that I'm not saying this makes him guilty. I'm not saying that it doesn't make her guilty. I'm saying it's odd behavior.
Yeah, it is a wild case.
Do you remember the Chris Watts case? People are saying that there are
out in Colorado, right?
Parallels between this case and the Chris Watts case, where if you're listening, you're unaware. Chris Watts killed his pregnant wife and their 2 daughters, and then dumped them in an oil well. Yeah. So someone in the chat said you're inferring. Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying I'm not on the jury, but if you are interested in me going down this rabbit hole, I will do it, because if I'm going to cover this case and if there is interest in it, I would do it the right way and spend hours of my time listening to every single thing. So if you are interested, I will do that. If you're not interested, I will spend my time doing something else and covering scrolling times or whatever. I will say I can't do the doom and gloom every day. It would have to be a doom and gloom episode, super scroll. Doom and gloom episode, super scroll, something like that. People in the chat said, I'm interested, do it. Do it. I don't know. How should we do the poll? Should I go based off the Rumble live chat? Should I do an Instagram poll? Should I send everyone to an X?
Let's throw some.
It's got to be a one poll place. So if you're listening right now on Rumble, not everyone listens on Rumble. So maybe I send everyone here to.
Yeah,
someone else said it's too depressing of a story.
What's your IG handle?
At Hayley Carania.
At Hayley Carania. We're gonna throw a poll up on
Instagram story.
On IG. And that'll be the poll of truth on the do or don't cover it on the show.
All right, we'll see. Anyway, I think it is odd that Lindsay Clancy was anyway, whether she is guilty, she's already said that she's done what she has done, right? She has admitted to strangling her children. I think she deserves to go to jail anyway. She's paralyzed for life, whether she's in jail or she's in a psychiatric facility. It's not like she's going to be on the run and a danger to others, maybe to herself. But either way, like if this woman killed her whole family and then killed herself, tragic. But whether she does that in a jail or in a psychiatric facility, doesn't really make a difference too much to me and to the greater Boston community. I don't think people are telling me don't turn into Candace. Do you really freaking think that I would turn into Candace Owens? Genuinely, I'm disturbed by that allegation. Truly, if you think that I would do that, you don't really think very highly of me, I'm insulted. So I would not. But anyway, Lindsay Clancy was on 30 prescriptions. She had 30 different prescriptions for psychiatric drugs and medication. So whether or not you believe that she belongs in jail, I think she belongs in jail, or a psychiatric hospital, you can also admit fault that her doctors were definitely not helping her. They were absolutely not helping her. This was a woman who clearly knew that there was something wrong with her. She sought out help. She told her mom that she had thoughts about hurting her own children. She checked herself into a mental health program, and the doctors around her obviously failed her. Like I said, both things can be true at once. So I'll do that poll and I'll let you know. Stay tuned for tomorrow. And of course, stay tuned for Sean Farish Live. I'll see you then. Bye.